I was hauling groceries up the porch when I saw them. Two shiny suitcases sitting by the front door like they owned the place. Then I saw my dad, standing there with this big grin on his face. "You'll never guess who's home," he said. And that's when Ethan stepped out from behind him. My brother. Back again. He opened his arms like we were kids again. "Hey, sis!" I smiled, but something inside me felt heavy. It's funny, you can love someone and still feel your stomach sink when they walk in. Dad helped him with the bags like he was a war hero returning from battle. Ethan looked around the entryway and said, "Fresh paint? Looks better?" "Yeah, I painted it. At midnight, after work." He never asked who did it. He just assumed. In the kitchen, I set down the groceries. Same thing every week. Bread, eggs, fruit, medication for Dad. All on my card. Ethan leaned on the counter like he owned it. "Just needed a reset," he said. "Breakup, job stuff, you know." Dad nodded proudly. "He's here to support me now." Support. That word again. Hook. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been the one holding everything up, but somehow the one that nobody sees? I wiped the sweat from my neck and started unpacking. Dad laughed and pointed at me. "She's the money genius. You'll keep handling the mortgage, right?" Ethan added, "You love numbers, don't you, sis?" It stung. Because yeah, I've been handling the mortgage, and groceries, and the plumber when the pipe burst. Not because I love numbers, because someone had to do it after Mom passed. I kept my mouth shut, because if I said how I really felt, dinner would go cold. Later, we sat at the table eating microwave pasta. Dad told the same story from high school, and Ethan laughed, just like old times. But it felt different, like I was watching a show I wasn't part of anymore. After dinner, Ethan walked around like a real estate agent. "Bye. Gee, backyard. Good bones," he said. He poked into my old room and said, "I might take this one." Didn't even ask. Just assumed. Dad followed him down the hall, chuckling. Nice to have a man around again. I stood in the kitchen alone, wiping down the table. No one said thank you for dinner. No one offered to help. I thought about Mom then. She used to squeeze my hand and whisper, "You're the strong one. Quiet, but strong." I missed her more than usual. That night, Dad said something that stuck in my mind. He was washing his mug, which I usually do, and he said, "Soon we'll formalize things, just to make the house easier to manage." I froze. "What things?" I asked. He shrugged. "You know, make things simple for Ethan to help around here." Hook. Simple. That word can mean safety, or it can mean you're being written out. I went quiet, because I knew if I pushed, I'd be labeled too sensitive. I gathered the trash and headed outside. That's when I saw it. An envelope in the mailbox. Bank logo in the corner. Addressed to Dad. I brought it inside and put it on the counter. He didn't even notice. Too busy helping Ethan hook up his PlayStation in the living room. The same living room I repaired last year when the ceiling leaked. The same one I vacuum every Sunday. I sat down, took a deep breath, and opened the envelope. The paper inside was thick. Official. I started reading. It was a notice. Mortgage rate reset. I kept reading. New payment, nearly double. Due next month. My heart dropped. I looked at the kitchen table, the empty plates, the unpaid bills, and the people who didn't seem to care how this house stayed afloat. I held the letter tight. It felt like holding fire, because I realized they're all counting on me, but none of them see me. I stood there in the kitchen, alone, holding that paper, and all I could think was, what happens when I stop saving them? Have you ever felt like you were doing everything, but slowly being erased? If this story feels close to your heart, don't forget to subscribe. I promise, It only gets deeper from here. The next morning, Ethan was already wearing Dad's old flannel, feet up on the coffee table, watching cartoons like he was 12 again. He gave me a sleepy smile and said, "Hey, coffee's out. You picking up more later?" I blinked. "I just bought a bag 3 days ago." He shrugged. "Yeah, it's gone." Dad walked in, laughing like it was cute. "You know your brother? He burns through coffee like gasoline." I poured the last of it into a travel mug and grabbed my keys. As I walked out the door, Ethan called after me, "Hey, grab that oat milk I like too, the organic one." Hook. I had a cart full of groceries, a maxed-out credit card, and 2 grown men back home who still thought helping out meant smiling. That week, the gas bill hit. Then the car needed brakes. I'd already used my last paycheck to cover Dad's prescription and the internet bill, so I skipped the haircut I'd saved up for, skipped the new shoes, skipped dinner twice, because the house needed to stay running, and no one else was going to run it. When I brought it up at dinner gently, Ethan just raised his eyebrows. "You should really budget better, Nora. Stress isn't a good look on you." Dad nodded like that was wisdom. "You've always been high-strung. Maybe let Ethan handle a few things." So I handed Ethan the trash schedule. Guess what? The cans never made it to the curb. I handed him the grocery list. He bought snacks and beer, nothing else. I asked him to help with laundry. He put red socks in with white towels. When I got home that Friday, the washer was broken, and Ethan was playing video games like nothing happened. "Machine's busted," he said. "Must be old." I asked, "Did you call anyone?" He blinked. "That's your thing, right? You're the fixer." I swallowed the anger, like I always do. That night, I sat at my laptop trying to move numbers around just to keep the lights on. Ethan walked by and muttered, "If you're so tired of helping, just say so." I looked up. "What?" He smirked. "You act like we're all taking advantage of you. No one asked you to be the martyr." I stared at him. "You moved in with nothing, and you've done nothing since." He crossed his arms. "Dad asked me to be here. You just stayed." Hook. That cut deep. Because part of me knew he meant it. I stayed because I loved Dad. Because after Mom died, I couldn't imagine him alone in this big, quiet house. But somewhere along the way, love turned into expected, and expected turned into invisible. On Sunday, Dad said he was thinking about changing the Wi-Fi password. Ethan had told him I was hogging it for work stuff. Work stuff? My remote job paid half that mortgage. Ethan? He was applying to business opportunities that mostly involved playing poker online. That afternoon, I heard them laughing in the living room. I peeked in. They were looking through Mom's old laptop, photos, recipes, her digital journals, things she kept locked in that little hard drive, like a time capsule. I smiled softly, until I saw Ethan clicking through folders fast. Too fast. "Be careful," I said. "There's stuff in there, important files." He looked over his shoulder. "Relax, I'm not 5. Then he clicked, and the screen blinked. Gone. He froze. "Oops." I ran over. One of the folders was gone, labeled Will plus Notes. Gone. I stared at him. "You didn't—" "It was an accident," he said. "I barely touched anything." Dad walked in and asked what was going on. Ethan beat me to it. "She's freaking out over nothing. Said I deleted something. I didn't." Hook. And just like that, I became the dramatic one again. Dad gave me that tired look. "Why would your brother delete anything on purpose?" I couldn't believe it. He believed him over me. No questions. No pause. Just blind faith. I walked out of the room, sat on the porch in the cold, hands shaking. That file held Mom's notes, her last wishes, the draft of her will. She hadn't printed it yet. She said, "We'll look at it together someday," now that someday was gone, unless I could find a way to recover it. So I made a copy of the hard drive that night, quietly, while they slept. And I made a promise to myself. If they wanted to rewrite history, I'd make sure I kept the receipts. Ethan started walking around like he owned the place. Remote in his hand, shirt off, music up loud. Every time I came home from work, it was like stepping into a frat house. Dad didn't seem to mind. In fact, he seemed lighter, laughing more, eating better. But I noticed something else, too. He was listening to Ethan, and less to me. One night I came home late. The sink was full of dishes. The lights were on in every room, and the thermostat was cranked up so high the house felt like a sauna. Ethan looked up from the couch and said, "Hey sis, we're out of paper towels." No, hello. No, how was your day? Just a demand. I dropped my bag and said, "You could go get some." He smirked. "I would, but you're the one with the Costco card." Hook. You know that feeling when you're not just unseen, you're expected? Expected to give, expected to stretch, expected to never say no? That was my life now. Dad called me into the kitchen the next morning. He said the electric bill looked high. He held the envelope like it was my fault the lights stayed on all night. I told him, "I turn off everything when I leave, you know that." He looked at me, then glanced at Ethan, who just raised his eyebrows. Dad sighed. "Well, someone's not being careful. You've always been a little forgetful." Forgetful? I paid every bill in this house. I cleaned, I budgeted, and now I was forgetful? I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood, because if I said what I really felt, I'd be the bad guy again. Later that week, my card declined at the pharmacy. I had $27 in my account. Payday was still 4 days away. I checked the app and saw the overdraft fee. The water bill had auto-drafted early, the one I told Ethan he could cover. I asked him about it that night. He was in Dad's recliner, watching sports. He didn't even look at me when he said, "Oh, I forgot. Can't you float it? You always do." I felt my face burn. "I can't keep floating everything, Ethan. I'm drowning." He finally looked up. "Don't make everything so dramatic. We're family." Then he stood up, patted my shoulder, and walked away. Hook. It's wild how people can steal your peace and still expect a thank you. The next blow came at dinner. I made spaghetti, again. Cheap, easy, filling. Dad cleared his throat halfway through and said, "Your brother's been helping out a lot lately." I looked at him. "With what?" Ethan smiled like a cat. "I've been helping Dad get organized. Helped him cancel that weird savings account you had set up for him." I dropped my fork. "What savings account?" Dad waved his hand. "The one that moved a little from each check. Ethan said we didn't need it." That was Mom's system. She set it up so Dad would always have something extra in case of emergencies. I stared at Ethan. "You convinced him to cancel that?" He shrugged. "It was just sitting there. We needed more in checking." No, he needed it. For junk food, apps, and online poker. I sat in silence, my stomach turning. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, it did. Ethan brought a woman over. Her name was Gina. Tall, loud, with fake lashes, and a voice that carried down the hallway. She flopped onto the couch like she lived there, called Dad Pops within 10 minutes. Gina looked me up and down the first night and said, "You're the sister? I figured you'd be, I don't know, less tense." I blinked. Dad laughed like it was a joke. Ethan laughed too. I went to my room and locked the door. "Hook, you can handle a lot when you feel safe. But when your home doesn't feel like your home anymore, everything hurts louder. Over the next few days, Gina was everywhere, using my shampoo, taking my spot at the kitchen table, asking where the extra towels were. At breakfast, she asked Dad, "So, what's the plan with this place? You leaving it to Ethan someday?" Dad chuckled. "We're just taking things day by day." But Ethan looked at me when she said it, like he was daring me to speak, like he already knew I wouldn't. Later that night, I heard her whispering in the hallway. "She's always so serious. You'd think she owns the place." Ethan replied, "Don't worry, things are already changing." Cliffhanger. I stood on the other side of the door, heart pounding, realizing that the house I had held together for years, the one I sacrificed for, was slowly being handed over to someone else, while I was still living in it. I started noticing little things first. My keys weren't where I left them. Receipts I saved for bills were missing, and the grocery money I kept in the drawer, gone. I asked about it. Ethan shrugged. "Maybe you misplaced it. You've been kind of forgetful lately." That word again. Forgetful. I wanted to scream, but Dad was sitting right there, nodding like it made sense. Then came the whispering. Soft, careful, just out of earshot. I'd walk into the kitchen and they'd stop talking. Gina would smile too wide. Ethan would ask, "Rough day, sis? You look tired." Hook. You ever feel like you're living in your own house, but somehow you're the stranger? That's how it started to feel. Every sound made me jump. Every look felt like a test I was failing. I tried talking to Dad one night after Ethan and Gina went out. He was sitting in his chair, watching those old nature shows Mom used to love. I sat beside him and said quietly, "Dad, I feel like things are getting off. Ethan's spending more, and the bills—" He sighed before I could finish. "Sweetheart, you're always making things complicated." "Complicated?" I repeated. He nodded, eyes still on the TV. "Ethan's helping. You should relax. Let him handle some things." I stared at him. "Handle? Dad, he's not paying anything. He's deleting things, using your account." He turned, sharp now. "Nora, enough." That tone, the one he used when I was little, shut me up instantly. He stood and muttered, "I've been thinking. We're going to revise the ownership papers soon. Make things easier." I froze. "What do you mean, revise?" He waved his hand. "Just a formality. Ethan says he'll take care of most of the payments going forward. He's got a new business idea. You won't have to worry." Won't have to worry. My least favorite lie in the world. I whispered, "Does this mean you're taking my name off?" He didn't answer. He just turned up the TV. Hook. That's the moment I realized. They weren't just taking my peace. They were taking my place. Over the next week, everything sped up. Ethan met with some friend who worked in real estate. Dad started signing things I never saw. Gina started talking like she was already family. "This house has so much potential," she said one morning, sipping my coffee. "We could totally redo the kitchen once the paperwork's through." I blinked. "What paperwork?" She smiled. "Oh, didn't he tell you?" I dropped the dish towel. "Tell me what?" She shrugged, still smiling. "Guess I shouldn't spoil surprises." Later that day, I checked the mail. 2 letters from the bank, both addressed to Dad and Ethan. My name wasn't on either one. I felt the air leave my chest. I opened one of them, hands shaking, and there it was. A printed summary of the updated mortgage agreement. Updated, revised, 2 names, Dad and Ethan, not me. My name, erased. Like I was never part of this house at all. Hook. If you've ever been rewritten out of your own story, you know the kind of silence that follows. It's not quiet, it's erased. I confronted them that night. The three of them were sitting in the living room, laughing like a sitcom family. I held up the paper. "What is this, Dad?" Looked confused. Ethan didn't. He smirked. "Oh, that. Just a technical correction." "Correction?" I snapped. "You took me off the mortgage." Dad frowned. "Ethan said it was just paperwork cleanup. You were never an owner anyway. Just a co-signer." "That's not true," I said. "Mom added me before she passed. She wanted—" Gina cut me off, voice syrupy sweet. "Maybe your memory's a little fuzzy, Nora. You've been really stressed lately." Dad's face softened. "Sweetheart, maybe you should take a break. Clear your head. You've been under pressure." I felt my chest tighten. "You're siding with them? After everything I've done for this house?" He sighed. "Nora, please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I laughed. Not the funny kind. The kind that comes from disbelief. "I kept this place alive," I whispered, "while he played victim and she moved in like a queen." Ethan stood up then, towering, calm, rehearsed. "Dad doesn't need this kind of stress. You're turning into Mom near the end, always worrying, always controlling." That hit me like a punch. He knew exactly what he was doing, because Dad went still at the word Mom. Dad stood, slow and cold. "Maybe it's time you stayed somewhere else for a while." I looked at him, my own father, and saw no recognition in his eyes. Cliffhanger. That night, I packed a small bag, and as I stood by the door, I turned and said, "You might have taken my name off the papers, but you'll never take me out of the truth." I didn't know how yet, but I was going to make sure they both paid for what they'd done. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of voices, low, urgent, coming from the kitchen. I stopped at the top of the stairs. It was Ethan and Gina, and Dad. "She's overwhelmed," Gina was saying, "always talking about bills and control. It's not healthy for her, or you, Dad." Ethan chimed in, his voice soft, careful. "You know how she gets, Dad. She means well, but she's intense. It's starting to wear on you." I stood there frozen, because they weren't just talking about me. They were deciding me. Dad's voice came next. "Maybe you rewrite. She hasn't been herself lately." My hands were shaking as I stepped down. "I haven't been myself?" I said. All three of them turned. Ethan sighed. "See what I mean? She listens to everything." Hook. It's strange how the people you protect can twist your care into something ugly. I looked right at Dad. "Are you really listening to them? To her?" Gina folded her arms, smiling small. "I'm just trying to keep peace in this house. It's been tense since I got here." "Tense?" I snapped. "You moved into my home, touched Mom's things, deleted files?" Dad's hand came up. "Enough." My voice cracked. "Dad, I said enough, Nora." He looked at me the way you look at a stranger who won't leave. "You need to take some space," he said. "This energy isn't good for anyone." Energy. He called my life falling apart. Energy. Ethan stepped closer. "We'll handle things here for a while. You can take time for yourself." I laughed. That kind of laugh that's half pain, half disbelief. "Handle things? You've handled everything right into chaos." No one answered. Dad just stared down at the floor. Hook. You know when you realize your family's already replaced you and you were still standing there? That was that moment. By noon, I was packing my things. Gina hovered in the doorway, watching me like a security guard. "Don't forget your chargers," she said, fake sweet. I didn't answer. I folded Mom's quilt and put it gently in my bag. One piece of home I refused to leave behind. Ethan showed up halfway through. "You don't have to make this dramatic," he said. "You'll feel better once you've cooled off." I turned to him, tears burning my eyes. "You stole from me, from Mom's memory, and now you want to play calm?" He tilted his head. "I didn't steal anything. I just rebalanced what was fair." I wanted to slap him, but I didn't. I just said quietly, "You'll regret this. Both of you will." I walked past him, suitcase in hand. Dad was by the door, his face blank. I whispered, "Dad, please, just listen to me. The payments, they're going up. You can't afford—" He cut me off, voice flat. "Ethan's handling it." I felt something inside me finally break. All those nights balancing bills, all those times I covered for him, all the invisible things I did to keep this family standing, none of it mattered now. I walked out without another word. Hook. When I stepped off that porch, I thought I was walking away from pain, but I didn't know I was walking toward the real fire. A week later, I stayed with my friend Dana. She worked at a bank. She saw me crying one night and asked what happened. When I told her, she frowned. "What bank is your dad's mortgage with?" I told her. She opened her laptop, typed a few things, and said, "Nora, are you sure Ethan's paying it?" I froze. "What do you mean?" She turned the screen toward me. The account showed 3 missed payments. 3. My heart dropped. "Missed? That can't be right." She nodded slowly. "It's already marked as delinquent. 1 more and they can start foreclosure proceedings." Foreclosure. The word hit me like cold water. All that talk about Ethan, handling it. All that confidence. And he hadn't paid a dime. I felt dizzy, sick, angry. I called Dad right away. He didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. Finally, Ethan picked up. "What now?" he said, annoyed. 3 missed payments, I said. "You haven't paid the mortgage." He laughed. "You checking up on me now? Relax, I'm handling it." "Handling it?" I snapped. "You're about to lose the house, Ethan." He sighed like I was the problem. "Don't worry about it. I've got something lined up. New loan, new deal. Dad knows." "No, he doesn't," I said quietly. "He trusts you, and you're ruining him." He didn't even flinch. He just said, "Funny coming from you, the one who walked out." Then he hung up. Hook. And that's when I realized they weren't just lying to Dad. They were building a story where I was the villain. I sat there in the dark, shaking. Not from fear this time, from rage. I thought about Mom's will, the one Ethan deleted, her voice still echoing in my head. "Take care of your father, Nora. He'll forget how to take care of himself." She was right. He forgot. Because Ethan made him forget. I looked down at the foreclosure notice Dana printed for me and saw the date. 2 weeks. 2 weeks before they lost everything. And if they wanted to call me unstable, they were about to see what unstable really looked like. I didn't sleep that night. Not a wink. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that foreclosure date. I saw my childhood home, with the yellow door and Mom's rose bushes, just gone. And worst of all, Dad didn't even know. The people who said they were supporting him were sinking the whole ship. So I did what I do best. I started digging. Hook. You know that moment when grief turns into fuel? That was me, sitting at Dana's table with a laptop, a flashlight, and fury. I pulled out everything I still had. Photos, emails, copies of payment stubs, old emails from Mom with subject lines like, "Important for the house." And then I found it. An attachment from 5 years ago. A scanned document with my name right there, next to Mom and Dad's. Joint ownership, with right of survivorship. I blinked. Then I read it again. And again. It meant that if something happened to Mom, her part didn't just vanish. It passed to the co-owners. Me and Dad. Not Ethan. Me. Hook. Ethan may have deleted Mom's file from the laptop, but he forgot something. Mom trusted me with a backup. I showed it to Dana, and she sat back in her chair. "Nora, you're still on the title," she said. "He can't remove you without your signature. Did you ever sign anything?" I shook my head. "Never." She leaned forward. "Then everything he's done, the refinancing, the new agreement, it's not valid without your consent." I just sat there, stunned. I had been shoved out, erased, made to feel like a problem, when legally, I still owned part of that house. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe, because now I had something stronger than rage. Proof. The next day, I made an appointment with a lawyer. Her name was Miss Rayburn. She listened to everything, quiet, focused. Then she asked one question. "Do you want to fight this quietly or publicly?" I smiled for the first time in a while. Loud, but legal. We pulled records, one by one. She showed me how the mortgage had been restructured using Dad and Ethan's names, but without proper authorization. "No bank should have approved this without you," she said. "You've got a strong case if they proceed." Hook. And just like that, the girl they pushed out? She had the power to push back. I asked if it would hurt Dad. She shook her head gently. "If anything, it'll protect him. He's being misled, and he's on the hook for thousands." I nodded. Because that was the hardest part. I didn't want revenge. I wanted the truth. I wanted Dad to see what Ethan was really doing. That night, I sat with the paperwork spread across Dana's kitchen table. Ownership records, payment history, copies of messages, and the letter I'd written to Mom before she passed, still saved in my drafts. I cried reading it. It said, "I promise I'll take care of him, Mom. I won't let anyone hurt him." And now, I had to keep that promise, even if he couldn't see it yet. The next morning, I walked into the bank, not as a daughter, not as a cast-out caretaker, but as a co-owner. I handed over the documents. The teller blinked, then said she needed to get the branch manager. 10 minutes later, I was sitting across from him. I laid out everything: the improper refinancing, the missed payments, the ownership status. He went pale. "We were told you relinquished your rights," he said. "I didn't," I said, "and I can prove it." He nodded slowly. "We'll flag the account. You have every right to do this. And honestly, thank you. That property's about to go into serious default." I walked out feeling taller than I had in months. Hook. It wasn't just about saving the house anymore. It was about saving the truth from being buried under someone else's lies. I didn't call Ethan. I didn't call Dad. I let the papers speak for me. I filed a legal notice of my ownership and froze the account from further changes. No more secret refinancing. No more shady updates. The house wasn't their playground anymore. That night, I got a voicemail from Ethan. He sounded panicked. "What the hell did you do, Nora? The bank called Dad. Said something about the mortgage being blocked. You need to fix this right now. You're ruining everything." I replayed that message 4 times. Each time it felt better. Because the only thing I was ruining was his fantasy. And I hadn't even told Dad yet. But I was about to. With every receipt, every document, and one single question. Do you still think I'm the problem? I hadn't stepped foot inside that house in over 3 weeks. Not since the day Dad let them shove me out like I was some stranger. But this time, I wasn't coming to explain. I was coming to show. I parked outside and just sat there for a second. My palms were sweating, my heart thudding like a drum. But I wasn't scared. I was done being scared. I knocked once. Dad answered. His face, surprised, guarded. "Nora," he said, like I was the ghost. "Can we talk?" I asked. "Just you and me." "Hook, you know that moment when you stop asking for space and start taking it?" He hesitated, then stepped aside. No sign of Ethan. No Gina either. Just quiet. We sat at the kitchen table, the one I'd wiped down 1,000 times, the one Mom used to decorate with fresh flowers. I pulled out the folder. Thick, organized, unshakable. "I'm going to walk you through some things," I said softly. "And I need you to listen, not as my father, but as the man who's about to lose everything." He frowned. "Nora, is this really necessary?" I opened the first page. The deed. My name. Still legal. Still binding. "You never removed me," I said. "And any paperwork Ethan filed without my signature is invalid." He blinked. "I thought he told me." "I know what he told you," I cut in. "But here's what really happened." I laid out every piece, the missed payments, the fake refinancing, the forged conversations, the letters from the bank. He didn't say much at first, just sat there, brows furrowed, mouth tight. Then I played the voicemail, the one where Ethan said, "You're ruining everything." I looked at Dad and said, if saving this house ruins his plans, maybe his plans were the problem. Hook. Sometimes the hardest thing to see is the person you raised becoming the person who fooled you. Dad rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older than I'd ever seen him, tired, like the truth had weight. "I just wanted peace," he whispered. "After your mom died, I didn't want to deal with numbers, stress, drama." I nodded slowly. "I get that. I really do. But you gave the keys to someone who doesn't know how to lock the door." He looked up. "He said you were overbearing, controlling." I smiled, but it hurt. "That's how people paint you when you say no, and they're used to hearing yes." He swallowed hard. "I didn't know it was this bad." I leaned in. "Dad, you trusted the wrong child. And now you're 3 missed payments from losing the home Mom died trying to protect." His hands trembled on the table. "I don't know what to do." I slid a sealed envelope toward him. "Start by opening this. It's everything. The proof, the documents, the numbers, all organized, all clean." He stared at it like it was a time bomb. "I can help," I said, "but not if I'm the one you keep shutting out." Hook. Sometimes the door you knock on has to want to open. He looked at the envelope, then back at me. "What if you're right? What if I messed everything up?" I shrugged. "Then fix it, before the bank does." He nodded slowly, like someone waking up from a long, heavy sleep. But before I could say more, footsteps echo, Ed down the stairs. "Ethan." Of course. He looked between us and scoffed. "This is what we're doing now? Ambushes?" Dad didn't say anything, just kept looking at the envelope. Ethan walked over, leaned on the chair, smirking. "She's always been dramatic, Dad. You know that. Probably faking half of it just to get your attention." I stood, looked him straight in the eye. "I'm done talking to you, Ethan." He rolled his eyes. "Fine. Run back to your spreadsheets." I turned to Dad. "I'm not asking you to choose me. I'm asking you to choose the truth." Then I picked up my bag, nodded once, and headed for the door. Right before I walked out, I paused and said, Open it before it's too late, Dad, because the next knock on this door won't be mine. It'll be the bank's. 2 days passed. No calls, no texts, just silence. And I thought, maybe he tossed the envelope. Maybe the truth didn't matter to him after all. But then, late one night, my phone buzzed. It was Dana. "I just saw a hard inquiry on the house account," she said. "Someone's trying to pull records." I sat up in bed. "Was it me?" She paused. "No, Nora. It was your dad." Hook. And just like that, I knew he had opened it. He finally looked. The next morning, I got another call. This time, it was Miss Rayburn, my lawyer. "Your father requested a review meeting," she said. "He's asking for clarification on co-ownership law." I whispered, "He's starting to believe me." Back at the house, things were shifting. I wasn't there, but I could imagine it. The air getting thicker, Ethan sweating, Gina nervous. Because the story they built on lies was cracking. Dad sat in the kitchen, the folder spread out before him. Highlight marks. Notes. He'd read every page. When Ethan walked in, casual as ever, Dad didn't look up. "Did you know the house was 3 months behind?" he asked quietly. Ethan blinked. "Yeah, but it's temporary. I told you I've got something lined up." "What exactly?" Dad asked, still not looking at him. Ethan shifted. "A small loan, from a guy I know. It's all under control." Dad's voice stayed calm. "Did you forge my signature on the refinance?" Ethan paused, then laughed nervously. "Come on, Dad. Are we seriously taking Nora's side now?" Hook. That's the thing about truth. Once it enters the room, lies get loud. "She's twisting this," Ethan continued. "She's always trying to control everything. You know that." Dad finally looked up. "I saw the bank letters. I saw the dates. You said you were paying, but you didn't pay a cent." Ethan's smile cracked. I was going to catch up. 3 months, Ethan. You risked foreclosure, and you didn't tell me." Now the panic was showing. "You think she's perfect, don't you?" Ethan snapped. "She's always been the favorite, the little savior, even when she was bossing everyone around." Dad narrowed his eyes. "This isn't about favorites." "Yes, it is," Ethan yelled. "She always got the praise. You trusted her with the money. Mom gave her the house, not me." Dad went quiet. And Ethan, he realized he'd said too much. Hook. Jealousy doesn't whisper. It shouts when it feels exposed. Dad stood up. He looked smaller, older, but suddenly clear, like the fog had finally lifted. "I trusted you," he said. "You came here saying you wanted to help, but you lied to me, to the bank, and to her." Ethan's voice dropped. I wanted to matter too." Dad's voice cracked. "You matter, but not like this." Silence filled the room. Gina appeared in the doorway, her face pale. She must have heard everything. She turned and walked away. And Ethan, for once, had no comeback. He sat down, head in his hands. That same day, I got the call. I saw Dad's name on the screen. My hand hovered for a second before I picked up. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then his voice. Soft. "Nora, I read everything. You were right. I didn't say anything. I just let him speak. I need your help." Those 4 words, after all that hurt, felt heavier too, on any apology. And as I sat there holding the phone, I knew this wasn't over. Because now, I had a seat back at the table, and this time, I'd be the one setting the terms. When I pulled up to the house, I didn't feel like a daughter coming home. I felt like a woman walking into a negotiation. I didn't bring guilt or anger, just facts and boundaries. Dad opened the door before I knocked. His eyes were tired, but softer than I remembered, like something had melted in him. He stepped aside. "Nora." I nodded. "Let's talk." We sat at the same kitchen table, only this time, I placed the folder down gently, not like a weapon, but like a way forward. Hook. Some conversations don't need to be loud to be life-changing. They just need to be honest. Dad cleared his throat. "I read every page, twice." I nodded. "Okay." He looked at me, voice low. "I didn't see what was happening. I didn't want to." "That's how it starts," I said. "Little choices that feel like peace, until they pile up into damage." He sighed. "I should have trusted you. You were holding everything together, and I let you carry it alone." I looked at him. "For years." He nodded. "I'm sorry, Nora. I didn't protect you like I should have." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real, and that's what I needed. "I don't want control," I said. "I want clarity and protection." Hook. Because forgiveness without a plan is just another setup for pain. We went over the mortgage, the missed payments, the credit damage, and the paperwork Ethan had filed behind our backs. "Can we fix it?" he asked. "We can stop it from getting worse," I said. "But it'll take time. And paperwork. A lot of it." I pulled out a new agreement, drawn up by my lawyer. "I want to make this official," I said. "I remain a co-owner. No changes without my approval. We split decision-making. And if anything happens to you, your portion goes where you choose, not where someone else pressures you to hand it." He nodded slowly. "I agree." I handed him a pen. He signed. For the first time since Mom died, I felt like someone finally saw me again. Hook. Not just as the helper, not the fixer, but the person with a voice. We were almost done when Ethan walked in. His face? Still smug, still trying to pretend like nothing had changed. He glanced at the papers. "What's this?" Dad didn't flinch. "Nora's setting protections, co-ownership, new terms." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "And you're just okay with that?" Dad looked him in the eye. "I'm not okay with what you did, and you're lucky she's even still willing to help fix it." Ethan looked at me, cold, like I was the threat now. "You think you can erase me?" he said quietly. "Make some papers and pretend I was never here?" I looked at him, calm as stone. "You erased yourself the day you forged Dad's name." But Ethan didn't blink. He just smiled darkly and said, "You think I'll let you erase me? This isn't over, Nora." I thought it was over. I thought once Dad signed the new agreement, once we cleaned up the bank mess, once Ethan saw he'd lost control, he'd back off. But people like Ethan don't walk away. They twist. They claw. They find one last door to jiggle. 3 days later, I got a call from the bank. "Miss Norton," the woman said, "we just got a refinancing inquiry from your brother, claiming he now holds sole decision-making rights." My heart dropped. "What?" I asked. "He sent documentation," she replied. "But none of it checks out. So before we go further, we needed to contact the co-owner on record. That's you." Hook. The person they thought they erased was the one holding the pen now. I drove straight to the branch. No fear, no doubt. I handed them the new agreement, the notarized documents, the legal ownership structure. They scanned everything, stamped it, and placed the property on protected oversight, meaning no changes, no refinancing, no shady papers, without both signatures, mine and Dad's. I looked the bank manager in the eye and said, "Make sure you flag any future activity from Ethan Norton. He has no authority here." She nodded. "It's done." And just like that, the last loose thread was tied. Hook. Sometimes justice doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like silence and a locked door. When I got home, Dad was on the porch, just sitting, holding a cup of coffee. He looked up when I stepped out of the car. "You stopped him again?" he asked. I nodded. "It's handled." He took a breath, long, heavy. Then he patted the seat beside him. We sat there in quiet. No yelling, no tears, just the creaking of the old porch wood under our weight, and the wind rustling Mom's roses in the yard. He looked at me. "I don't know if I deserve your help after everything." I shook my head. "It's not about deserving, Dad. It's about choosing better when you know better." He smiled, just a little. "I'm proud of you, you know." I looked at him. "I'm proud of me too." Hook. There's a kind of peace that only comes after the storm. Not because it didn't hurt, but because you survived it. Ethan moved out the next week. No fight, no goodbye, just silence. I didn't chase him, and Dad didn't stop him. Some people exit your life quietly, but leave behind the loudest lessons. That house? It's not perfect. The paint's still chipped in places. The roof still needs fixing. But it's ours again. Honest. Safe. And this time, I'm not the only one holding it up. Dad helps now. He's present. And more than anything, he listens. Some Sundays we sit on the porch. We don't talk about the past much. But sometimes he'll glance at the roses and say, "She'd be proud." And I nod, because she would. Cliffhanger? No, this isn't a cliff. It's solid ground. So now I'll ask you, have you ever been pushed out, only to realize you had the power all along? Let me know in the comments. Your story matters too. And if this one stayed with you, hit that subscribe button, because there's more where that came from. We rise, one truth at a time.